What's going on, world? Welcome to another stream by the Football Physios, where we cover everything in the world of soccer fitness, soccer rehab. Today, we have a full slate of injuries, which we'll be covering. We'll be talking about Mohamed Salah and him possibly being ruled out for the rest of AFCON. We'll be talking about Eder Militao and him being spotted at training at Real Madrid just a few weeks or months after his ACL reconstruction at the beginning of the season. But we're going to start off the show with talking about Erling Haaland and his foot. So, guys, I am really excited for this stream today. I think we're going to talk about a lot. I think we're going to learn a lot. Be sure to share this stream with a teammate, with a coach, with a coworker, with a physio, with a strength coach. Be sure to share the stream so everybody can learn exactly what's going on in the world of footy when it comes to fitness and when it comes to injury. And send me your questions. Send me your questions. I am live on YouTube right now. If you send the question through YouTube, I'll put it on the screen at the end of the show for everybody to see, or you can send it through the Instagram chat. I'll be able to see those at the end of the show as well. Shout out to everybody who's been joining the stream so far. Jacob, Abbas, Mershari, and RRDR1996. Thank you for joining the show thus far. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about Erling Braut Haaland. Striker, Man City, probably robbed of, the best player of the world in 2023, an award that Messi recently won last week. We're going to start this show by talking about Erling Haaland. We're going to discuss his injury from start to finish, exactly what is going on, why it's taking so long, and why City are right to take their time with this particular injury. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, Erling Haaland, he has been out for quite some time with a foot injury. The only thing that Manchester City have said is that this is what we call a stress-related injury from his foot. And that's a little bit vague, but don't worry, we're going to break it down completely. Let's go ahead and read exactly when Manchester City's star striker will be back. This was published just about 5 days ago, so it's pretty current. So let's go ahead and break this down together here. Erling Haaland continues to be missing for Manchester City, as Pep Guardiola confirmed he suffered a setback and can't say when the Prem leading scorer will be back. Haaland, who has been named the second best player on the planet behind only Messi in the FIFA Best Awards, is still out with a foot injury, and it is expected he may try to step up his recovery when the team heads out to Abu Dhabi for a warm weather training break, which I believe they were at this past week. Man City will take time off in Abu Dhabi, with Guardiola's side having a rare window of time to recover, as they have almost 2 weeks without a game that they play next in the fourth round of the FA Cup at Tottenham on January 26, which is 5 days from the posting of this video. That will give Haaland more time to recover, and it sounds like he'll need it. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, a little bit. Guardiola said when asked if Haaland had suffered a setback, he's fine, but a little problem disturbing his feet. The doctors decided to stop for 1 week and maybe restart in Abu Dhabi. Hopefully at the end of the month, he'll be ready. A little bit more than we expected, the beginning in his bone. The bone needs more time. The bone needs more time. Every injury, you can do what you want, but it's a question of time. He'll be ready to come back at the end of this month. Well, what is exactly going on with Erling Haaland? There are quite a few possibilities. So again, the only thing, and on this show, we keep things objective. We try and keep things exactly to what's been said in the media. So we don't draw any false conclusions. We don't put out any fake information, none of that here. What is exactly going on is Erling Haaland has some sort of a stress-related injury in his foot. Now, what does that exactly mean? Most people are familiar with the term stress fracture. And a stress fracture is when a bone is put under a lot of stress, so much to the point where the bone can't heal. And most people don't know this, but your tissues in your body, being your bone, your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, they are constantly in a state of what we call remodeling. Well, what does that mean? Every 4, 5, 6 months, years, whatever, every time frame, what happens is your body is consistently breaking down tissue. It's consistently breaking down tissue within your body, and it's making new tissue to replace it. You can almost think of your bones in your body as a brick house. Well, if you have a brick house and you let it stay up for 100 years, what's going to happen? That brick house is going to degrade and fall apart. What has to happen throughout the lifespan of that house, and what happens throughout every tissue in an athlete's body, any body in general, is you're consistently remodeling the house. You're consistently taking things that were there before, being bone, muscle, nerves, tendons, whatever. You're breaking it down and you're replacing it with new tissue. In this case, with new bone. But what's happening in this injury is Erling Haaland's bone is put under so much stress that it can't make new bone enough to replace the bone that's being put under pressure. Now, what exact bones are we talking about here? There are a few possibilities. If you look at what's actually in the human body here, let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to turn off the connective tissue here. We're going to go ahead and look at the foot here. So there's a few bones that are often put under stress in the human body that really, really need to be taken into account when it comes to an injury like this. Specifically in the foot, there are two bones that you have to look out for. One is the navicular. This is the navicular right here. And this is a very, very likely and common spot for stress-related injuries of the foot. There are so many vital attachments and tendons and ligaments that go into this foot, into this bone. This bone bears a lot of weight. It's very, very important. Long story short, you do not want to mess with this bone. If this bone has an issue, you need to make sure that it's being taken care of properly. The other bone, which is even more common for athletes to have a stress-related injury on, is this bone right here, the fifth metatarsal. And let's go ahead and look at it from kind of this angle here. This bone bears so much weight. In particular, you guys see this kind of triangle shaped, let's see if I can draw it in for you guys right here. This triangle shaped portion of the bone right here. That portion of the bone is a very, very common spot for stress-related injuries. And what's actually happening right now is this bone is still intact because it's a stress reaction. But what can happen over time is if this stress reaction doesn't get the treatment and rest that it needs, that bone can actually break. And that piece of bone can actually become dislodged. And at this point, depending on the athlete and the severity, you may have to have surgery to make sure that that bone heals properly. Because what this bone doesn't have is a very good blood supply, meaning that this bone doesn't get a lot of nutrients. This bone doesn't get a lot of good things that allow it to heal quickly. This bone takes a lot of time in order for it to recover, and there is little to nothing that we can do from a rehab perspective to speed that up. Sometimes athletes can get something like a bone stimulator that can try and accelerate the rate of bone growth, but there's not a ton else that you can do for this bone other than just simply allow it to rest. Well, why is this so important? Why is this so important for Erling Haaland? Why is this so important for Erling Haaland? It's so important because the bigger you are as an athlete, the more powerful you are, the more you're jumping, the more you're landing, the more stress that gets put through that bone. And Erling Haaland is a big guy. What is he, 6'5"? How tall is Erling Haaland? How tall is Haaland? 6'4", probably 220 pounds. He's a big guy. So there's a lot of stress going into that bone. If you actually look at some of the NBA athletes that have had this injury, it happens a lot to the bigger players who are heavier, who are more powerful, which means that every single step that you take, stress goes through that bone. And when you're jumping, you're landing, you're kicking, you're having 4, 5, 6, 7 times your body weight going through that bone. And it's a small bone. It's going to need time to react, to relax, to heal. to completely recover, because if that breaks, you're looking at a time period of 2 to 3 months for the bone just to heal, and then you have to do all the rehab on top of it. So City are going to be just fine without him, and this is probably why. And guys, when elite athletes get injured, this is some of the things that happen in the background of, okay, Erling Haaland is going to be out for an extended period of time. When will we actually need him back? When will we actually need him back? And if you kind of go through Man City's fixture list, there's not a lot of concern. There's not a lot of concern. So you can kind of see here the games that he has missed: Everton, okay, Fluminense, FIFA Club World Cup, a competition that's not too important for Manchester City. But if you look at the matches that are coming up, there's not a lot that it's like, oh man, we really need Haaland back for these matches. We have Tottenham. We all know who they are. FA Cup, not as important as the Premier League or the Champions League. Then we got Burnley, bottom of the table, Brentford, Everton, Copenhagen, Chelsea, Brentford. So when you're kind of analyzing the fixture list, it's like, yeah, we do not need Erling Haaland for Sheffield United. We can take our time. We do not need Erling Haaland for Huddersfield. We can take our time. Newcastle, okay, tough fixture. Tottenham, okay, a decent fixture. But then Brentford, Everton, Copenhagen, there are some easier fixtures in there. But it's not until Copenhagen, Chelsea, where it's like, okay, we need our star striker back. So from Guardiola's perspective, it's like, okay, maybe until February 13th, we have a little bit of wiggle room. We have some wiggle room. So he can take his time, he can recover, because it's all about what's coming next. It's all about what's coming next. In March, Man United, Copenhagen, Liverpool, Brighton, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace. Then it eases up at the end of the season with Luton and Tottenham a little bit. But you can see March is like, we need Erling for March. We need Erling Haaland for United, Champions League, Liverpool, Brighton, Arsenal, Aston Villa. Like, those are the matches that he is desperately needed for. So I am sure that rehab for him will be kind of based off of those fixtures. It'll be based off of how the bone is healing. The doctors will play a very large role in this, as that bone is probably being imaged multiple times to see exactly how it's healing. But that is exactly what's going on in the world of Erling Haaland. Guys, be sure to share this stream. Be sure to send me your questions. Send me your questions. Put questions in the chat. I'm going to check the chat right now. I'm sure that we've had some questions already. Jacob, I'll answer your question at the end of the stream. Few people have joined the show since then. Guys, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Let's go ahead and discuss our next injury. Let's go ahead and discuss this injury right here. Mohamed Salah. Mo Salah, is he going to be ruled out of AFCON? So recently what happened is he had a hamstring injury. He had a hamstring injury, and Liverpool actually just published this post just a few hours before this stream. So we're going to go ahead and go through it together. We're going to see what it says. We're going to read between the lines. I'm going to give you my input as a physio, and we'll take it from there. So let's get to it. Mohamed Salah to return to Liverpool from AFCON for treatment on injury. The Egyptian Football Association has confirmed Mohamed Salah will return to Liverpool from the Africa Cup of Nations to receive treatment on his muscle injury. Let's zoom in and learn even more. The forward sustained this injury on Thursday during the first half of his nation's group stage fixture against Ghana. A subsequent update was issued stating he is expected to miss Egypt's next two matches if they progress to the knockout rounds of the tournament in the Ivory Coast. Salah will travel back to Merseyside after the Pharaohs Group B finale versus Cape Verde on Monday night. The Egyptian FA said in a statement on Sunday, after additional examinations were conducted on Mohamed Salah during the last few hours, and after communication between the national team's medical staff and his counterpart at Liverpool FC, it was decided the player will return to England after the Cape Verde match tomorrow to complete his treatment with the hope, and this is important, with the hope that he will join the national team in the semifinal of the AFCON if we qualify. Well, what exactly is going on here? What is going on here? Well, we actually can deduce a few things from one, the injury, to the statement by Liverpool FC. We know three things. Not for sure, not for certain, but we can kind of read between the lines and decide three things. One, we know the timeline of the injury. We know the timeline of the injury. We also can kind of determine the severity. Not with a lot of precision, but we can kind of determine the severity. And we can kind of determine where in the muscle the actual injury is. The timeline is a fact. Well, not exactly a fact. The timeline is clear and obvious to the reader. The severity and the location of injury, a little bit you got to read between the lines for, but we can conclude that the timeline for this injury is just about 3 weeks. And why is that? Well, the whole goal for Mohamed Salah is to potentially return for the semifinal of the AFCON from the Cup of Nations. And the semifinals, February 7th. February 7th, I believe, is a Thursday. The date of injury, January 17th, if I'm doing my math correctly, which means there's about 3 weeks. There is about 3 weeks from the date of injury to his potential return to AFCON. Well, how can we say, okay, we have that timeline there, but how do we know the severity? Well, there is a muscle injury grading system, and there are several versions of this grading system, which we're not going to get into on this stream here. But generally, we have different grades of muscle injury. Grade 1 being a small percentage of the muscle fibers being teared. Grade 2 meaning a larger proportion, up to maybe 50% of the fibers being torn. And grade 3 meaning more than 50, potentially up to 100% of the muscle fibers being torn. Well, how does that relate to hamstring injury? Typically, and there is a lot of overlap, but typically a grade 1 hamstring injury is about 2 to 3 weeks. A grade 1 hamstring injury is about 2 to 3 weeks. There is variability within that, but generally about 2 to 3 weeks. Typically, for a grade 2 hamstring injury, it's about 3 to 4 weeks. Again, variability within that. There's always variability. It could always be less than 3. It could always be more than 4. But typically, it's about 3 to 4 weeks. Now, that being said, if the whole goal is to return to AFCON, a very important competition, it's a continental FIFA competition. So if the timeline is set out for 3 weeks, you're looking at a grade 1 injury or maybe a more minor grade 2 injury. And with that, we know that a smaller percentage of the muscle fibers are torn, likely less than 50%. And we can also and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this here. Let's move off of this foot here. Let's turn the pen off. Let's reset everything here. Let's zoom out. Let's turn on our muscles. Zoom in, zoom out. Okay, so did y'all know that the hamstrings actually have 3 muscles? Did you guys know that the hamstrings have 3 muscles? I didn't know that before PT school. But the hamstrings actually have 3 muscles. There are 3 muscles. Let's go ahead and outline them here because this also has an effect on how long this injury rehab will be. The hamstring is actually 3 muscles. One is the biceps femoris. This guy right here. It actually has 2 heads. We're not going to get into that. But this is one of the 3 muscles. It's on the outside of your leg. The other two are on the inside. We got this guy right here, the semitendinosus, and this guy right here, the semimembranosus. Did you guys know that this muscle on the outside here has a quicker return to injury than the two on the inside here? These injuries on the inside will take longer to heal generally than this guy out here. So that's a clue. That's a clue, because if he's going to fully recover from this injury within just 3 weeks and return to full fitness, being a continental competition, it's probably this guy right here, the biceps femoris, which is also way more common in general for soccer injuries to have an injury on. The reason for that, nobody really knows. Maybe it's because it has 2 nerve innervations, yada, yada, yada. We're not going to get into that on this stream here, but it's a lot more common for players to injure this muscle. So it's probably in this muscle. And not only that, because of the fact that the injury has a timeline of 3 weeks to complete recovery, if we are looking at a complete recovery, because we could be looking at a scenario where the injury is actually a lot more severe and Mohamed Salah is going to return without being fully recovered. But that's a possibility we're not going to get into on this stream here. But we also know that hamstring injuries that happen in the middle of the muscle, let's get my pen out here. Hamstring injuries that happen in the middle of the muscle, kind of right there in the middle of the muscle, these injuries heal quicker than injuries that happen higher up or lower down within the muscle. Why? Because you see all this red here. Muscle is red because, 1, that's the color of the tissue, but 2, it has a really good blood supply. But if you look towards the top here, where I'm kind of circling here, you see how that's all white? That's a tendon. That tendon does not have a good blood supply, and it's the same at the bottom here. Those areas of the muscle do not have a good blood supply, and because of that, they take longer to heal. And because of that, we can kind of conclude that that injury is probably in the middle of the muscle belly. It's likely on the biceps femoris, because that injury is a lot more common in soccer players. About 80% of injuries in the hamstring happen in the bicep femoris. 2, injuries on the inner hamstring take longer to heal. And because we have only about 3 weeks, we know that the injury is likely on the more mild side. And 3, we know the muscle injury is probably in the middle, right on top of that juicy muscle that has a lot of good blood supply that allows it to heal relatively quickly. So you can see, guys, when you read an article, you can kind of piece through the lines and read between the lines and kind of get an insight as to exactly what's going on. Now, did Mohamed Salah leave Liverpool? Why did he leave Egypt and go back to Liverpool if the whole goal is to return back to the Egyptian national team? Well, it's because it's in everybody's best interest. It is in everybody's best interest for Mohamed Salah to do just that. Well, why? I've never worked at AFCON. I've never worked at Copa America. I've never worked at Gold Cup. But I have worked in a football environment where you're in a tournament. And when you're in a tournament environment, the only thing that is important is getting through each day to the next match and winning. Your entire schedule as a player, as a manager, as a physio, as a fitness coach is revolved around the team schedule. Your treatments are revolved around the team schedule. Your practice, everything, completely everything. Which means Mohamed Salah, as important as he is to the Egyptian national team, depending on the amount of staffing that the Egyptian FA has over there, they probably travel with maybe 3, 4, possibly even 5 physios. Mohamed Salah is going to need individual treatment. The treatment of Mohamed Salah cannot be impacted by the scheduling of the Egyptian national team, which means that whoever's working with Mohamed Salah has to focus on just Mohamed Salah, which means that they're not helping the rest of the team. And if the team loses, there's no team for Mohamed Salah to return to, because we're talking about a knockout competition here. If Mohamed Salah returns to Liverpool, I don't know how many physios I have on staff, but I would be surprised if it's anywhere less than 6 to 7. Mohamed Salah can really be prioritized there. And they can focus just on him. He could have a physio say, I don't need to do anything else. I'm only focused on Mohamed Salah. Liverpool can justify it because he's one of their best players. And it is important for him, as well as Egypt, to return to 100%. So that's probably why Mohamed Salah went back to Liverpool, is because the Egyptian FA and their staff can focus strictly on AFCON. Mohamed Salah can get the best treatment possible in an environment. That's the other thing. Who knows what kind of facilities the Egyptian FA have access to? Who knows? What kind of gym do they have? What kind of treatment modalities do they have? What kind of doctors do they have access to? Did the Egyptian doctor travel with them? These are all the things we don't know. But what we do know is that Mohamed Salah has everything he needs at Liverpool. So I'm not too surprised that he actually went back to Liverpool to finish his rehab, to finish his treatment. And should he need to return to Egypt, it's probably, 7-hour flight to go back. So that's no problem for Mohamed Salah. Let's talk about this, because this, I think, is extremely interesting. Eder Militao was cited at training for Real Madrid. And this is where things will get a little bit tricky on the reader's end, because the rest of the stream today is about misinformation. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there is so much just fake garbage information that's out there. We're going to go through exactly why the media was reporting that Eder Militao was found at training, and we're going to analyze it together. So let's go ahead and open this article right here that kind of explains exactly what's going on. So this article was written about 3 weeks ago. The date of the article is relatively irrelevant in this case, but Real Madrid injury list, possible return date for injured La Liga players, including David Alaba. Let's go ahead and scroll down to Eder Militao. Possible return date. That's interesting. Why do I already find this interesting? Well, he tore his ACL at the beginning of the season, looking at probably August, September, which means that his 9-month mark would be late May-ish, around then. So why are we already talking about a return date? I can guarantee you, if he has a return date on paper, it's just that, a return date on paper. It's a target date. I do it. Everybody else does it. But you cannot say with definitive, proof that he will be back on that day. But let's go ahead and go through this. Brazilian defender Eder Militao, who has blossomed into a key figure at Real Madrid, suffered a torn ACL in the very first match of the campaign. Yada, yada, yada. Unlike Thibaut Courtois, there was no additional damage to Militao's left knee, and therefore he is expected to return this season. In fact, there are multiple signs that Militao is progressing well. Now, what are these signs then? As early as October, 2 months after surgery, Militao was spotted at Real Madrid training, although he was doing very light work and nothing with him. I want you guys to really read this. He was spotted at Real Madrid training, doing very light work and nothing with the ball. Remember that, because we're going to come back to that. When Alba went down, yada, 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 Militao is recovering well and could be an option down the road. That's a very vague statement because, again, nobody knows for sure when he'll come back. Given the indications of a possible return this season, it's realistic to think that Militao could be back on the field in March, a layoff of around 7 months. I can tell you guys this. If you have an ACL and you're returning in 7 months, you probably are not at 100%. We're not going to get into that on this stream here, but he was doing light work and nothing with the ball. What exactly was he doing? So when I was reading this article, I was kind of piecing through and I said, let me click on this link here. Let's see exactly what was he doing at Real Madrid training. What was he doing? Light work without a ball. He seems to be doing well. Let's see. Let's see. And then I found this. This is what they were referring to. This is what they were referring to. This is him at training. He doesn't even have his boots on. This guy is going for a promenade. What is he? Is that a little protein shake? He's drinking a little protein shake. This guy doesn't even have his boots on. He's walking barefoot. Guys, I bring this up. He's got his chain on. He's got his chain on. He's got his earrings in. He's smiling. He's enjoying the sunshine. Maybe he's just showing off his fresh tattoos. He's walking. Oh, wow. He actually has an LET. I'm actually looking at that right now. It looks like he's got an LET. What is an LET? An LET is an additional kind of thing they do with the ACL. Wow, that's interesting. We'll have to do a stream about that as well. I bring this back to say a lot of the times spotted at training. That was the training spottage. That was him. This is what they were referring to when they said he was spotted at training and doing well. Guys, a lot of the times the media will see something, and this is to no fault of their own. The media will see something and they will draw a conclusion based off of it. Somebody else will read that article, draw their own conclusion. Somebody else will read that article and draw their own conclusion. Next thing you know, you have just complete disinformation. Yeah, he was doing. The only thing that had to happen for him to be spotted at training was for him to look at his physio and say, hey, can I go out for a walk with my protein shake? Can I go drink my protein shake? Can I go out for a walk? It looks nice outside. Can I go for a walk outside? He goes for a walk. Somebody takes a picture of it. Next thing you know, it's being reported that he's back in March. It's crazy how that happens, but that is what happens. That is what happens. So be careful of what you read. Be careful of who writes it. Be careful of their interpretation of it. And be careful if you are not getting information from a firsthand source. That is why on this channel, we only get things directly from the club or directly from what we see in a firsthand account, whether that be a video or a photo, and we don't draw conclusions based off of anything else besides that. Be careful of your sources. Be careful of your sources. Be careful of your sources. There's so much fake garbage, fake information, disinformation, deceitful information, harmful information. The things that we see on the internet, at least I see from a physio perspective, is shocking. And I made a very bad mistake on my stream a few days ago. I made a very bad mistake. I'm shameful to have made it. I'm shameful to have made it. I was talking about the Neymar injury, and I did a very, very bad mistake. I'm going to play for you guys the video of last week's analysis on Neymar, and there's something that I did that was really wrong. So, ACL here. So, the ACL is a ligament. It starts in the front of your knee, and what it does is it starts in the front, runs through the middle, and attaches on the back of your knee. The meniscus is a structure that sits right here in the middle of those two, and it allows for a lot of good cushioning between the thigh bone and the shin bone. So what happens is if there's some sort of twisting, rotating mechanism, you can see that.
Can't believe I did this.
Kind of white, big pieces of cartilage.
Can't believe I did this.
If that twists a lot, not only is it going to impact the ACL that runs through the middle, but
There's the mistake.
There is the mistake. I didn't realize this until I was watching my stream back a few days ago. I didn't realize this until I was watching my stream back a few days ago because I was pulling up these images relatively quickly on the fly during the stream. But I noticed that's not the ACL. That's not the ACL. Shocking. That is not the ACL. This is This image is wrong. This image is not correct. So I was like, wait, hang on. Like, let me go back and look at this website, because to be honest, the source of this information doesn't really matter too much, but because this is so common, this is not the ACL. You see how this arrow is pointing towards ACL. This is not the ACL. The guy, you see this guy right here, if you can see that, that's actually ACL. This is not even the front of the knee. This is the back of the knee. And this is coming from an orthopedist website, a knee surgeon. Guys, if the website of a knee surgeon, and again, the website doesn't matter. The name of the website doesn't matter, because honestly, this was a mistake, probably not even made by the orthopedist, probably by a secretary or somebody who, was assigned to kind of go through this. But if a orthopedist website does not have truthful information on it, if an orthopedist website does not have truthful information on it, you really can't trust anything you read on the internet when it comes to health and medicine. You really cannot trust, and that's coming from a physio who's streaming. Guys, you can trust me. I swear to God, on everything. Like, everything I tell you is true. Otherwise, I won't say it. I will make mistakes from time to time, but if I do make a mistake, I will address that, just as I'm doing right now. You cannot believe what you read on the internet. The amount of disinformation is insane, and it doesn't cover just sports injuries. It's everywhere. If you just Google amount of fake medical information online, so many articles, so many things, prevalence of health information, misinformation on social media. This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. Huge problem. Massive problem. The prevalence of health misinformation was highest on Twitter. Anecdotally, I can say that's true, along with Threads, there's a lot of just fake, like, bad things on Threads, was highest on Twitter, and on issues related to smoking products and drugs. However, misinformation on major public issues such as vaccines and diseases was also high. Our study offered a yada, 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 yada. Long story short, there's a lot of fake things online. There's a lot of fake things online. You guys have to watch out. You have to watch out. If you have questions, if you have concerns, you have to bring it up to a healthcare provider. You cannot trust anything you read on the internet unless it's from a reputable source. When I say a reputable source, I mean an article that is backed by science, not a blog. It has to be from a specific healthcare professional that you know, that you trust, because these streets ain't safe out here. These streets ain't safe out here. There is so much bad, fake things going on. You can't trust it. You can't trust it. Let's get into your questions. Let's see what we got. Thank you guys for joining the stream thus far. Let's go through our questions for today. Where's my phone? I'll be right back. I gotta grab my phone. Let's see if we got any questions. Let's see if we got any questions for the stream. Let's see it. Let's see it. I hope I got at least one question. Berg, I hope you sent me a... Berg's my co-host for my podcast. I hope he sent me a question. He said he was going to. I hope he did. I hope he did. Come on, Berg. Come on, Berg didn't send me a question. Damn. I need a question. All right, let's go through the chat here. Let's see what question. Guys, if you have a question and you're watching live, be sure to send it in the chat. Send your questions. Do I not have any questions? 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 I guess I don't have any questions. Okay, well, that brings an end to today's stream. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in to the stream today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Oh, I do have questions. Berg, I knew you got me, my guy. I knew you got me, my guy. I knew it. I knew it. Yo, Berg's a real one. Berg says those stress fracture injuries are nagging. That is right. Promenade. I appreciate you. Berg, you got to update your YouTube name. You still got SBT. You got a little doctorate now. All right, guys. I'm going to end the stream there. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you. Peace and love. I'll see y'all next time.